Joining us now from Washington, D.C. is Mark Kimmit, a retired U.S. general and former Assistant Secretary of State for Political Military Affairs. Thank you for staying with us. So I want to ask you about this Iranian vessel that has been struck off the coast of Sri Lanka. And I guess my question is, where have we gotten to with rules of engagement in this type of conflict? We know that this vessel was in international waters, but we also know that Iran has been shooting missiles at many different countries that are not a party to this conflict. So is there anything to stop literally anyone anywhere from being drawn in?
Well, first of all, I don't think there's an issue with the sinking of the IRIS Dina. It was a weapon of war. It was capable of firing at any of our ships that are in the Persian Gulf. It was a threat, and so it was appropriately sunk well within the rules of engagement. Now, on the other hand, the Iranians are demonstrating that they're unwilling to follow any rules of engagement. We have reports now that a church in Ankawa district inside of Erbil was attacked and almost destroyed by an Iranian proxy group, and the same thing with the residential area. You're seeing essentially the Iranians following the same rules of engagement as the Russians in Ukraine, fire indiscriminately, use bombing campaigns as a method to intimidate and cow the population, and don't worry about who you hit, what you hit, or where you hit. Everything is unrestricted warfare.
I'm glad you brought up Ukraine, because I did want to ask you about these conversations that are being had between the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and a number of leaders in the Gulf region, because obviously Ukraine has been dealing with this kind of warfare for the past 4 years, including the use of these drones. What kind of information, help can Zelensky offer these leaders as this continues to go forward?
Well, at the tactical level, it'll certainly be the issues of the tactics, techniques, and procedures that the Ukraine military has used to either stop the Russian drones or stop the Russian missiles and long-range drones. There's a lot to be learned there in terms of camouflage and concealment. But the strategic level, the counseling he can give is, how do you react to an attack? At the granular level, what fire departments you need, what kind of equipment you need, but also how to rally the civilians around the war aim that the countries would have, in this case, defense. Look, nobody expected President Zelensky to be in power after 4 years, after the ruthless attacks of the Russians, but he has. He's inspired his population, and I think that's the best advice he can give to his GCC counterparts.
I'm taking a bit of an exit ramp here, but I think it's worth asking you here as well. How difficult is this situation entirely for President Zelensky, given that any peace talks that may be happening with Russia and the U.S. have now obviously been put on the back burner?
Oh, I don't necessarily think that's what's going on. The fact remains is the negotiators from different parties can chew bubblegum and walk at the same time. It's very capable for us to run numerous negotiating actions in the middle of war, in the middle of peace. I don't see an impairment in the least.
It was suggested today in the press conference that was held by Caroline Leavitt that it may have been unwise for the United States to give Ukraine the amount of weapons that it has over the past 4 years, given that it is now in this military conflict. Would you agree with that sort of statement?
Look, I think what's more important is that they're shifting their strategy, the U.S. military and the Israeli military, to shift from a standoff use of weapons, which are probably diminished significantly, to stand-on weapons. In other words, using those weapons that couldn't otherwise have been used because of the danger of the air defense threat. Well, the fact is that the air defense threat in Iran has reduced so much, we've achieved air dominance, which means we no longer have to use just stealth aircraft. We can use F-16s and other non-stealth aircrafts. So I think that was a mistake for Iran to allow its air defense systems to be eliminated, because now the United States and Israel can probably increased the number of strikes by 10 times by using non-stealth aircraft and using weapons that are not used for standoff.
General, while you're speaking, we're looking at some live pictures on our screen of Beirut, where there have been more strikes through the evening. There have also been more forced evacuation orders given from Israel to people in neighborhoods in southern Lebanon. And I wonder, as this war continues on a second front here, is there going to be a tactical split, do you think, between Israel and the United States? Is there any sense of a divide and conquer that's happening here with their military objectives?
It is certainly harder for a friendly force to fight on two fronts. You can't deny that. But it does not appear that Israel is being taxed in its ability to fight in Iran by having to fight against Hezbollah. That is something we may see if this fight in Lebanon continues on for some period of time. But at this point, I think the Israelis would tell you that they can handle both at the same time.
General Kimmit, we appreciate your time in this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.